because I write to teens and to young people, and so I always try to think about what language can I use that's palatable, right, that's accessible, because I know a lot of them are also probably, while they might not be closeted, they probably know what it's like to be outcasted. They might probably know what it's like to maybe be bullied or be judged or be about or be othered. They know that feeling, right? So I'm like, well, if I can write to that without getting to the nuances of, I'm not gonna write about my father sniffing coke. I could do that. I'm gonna write about the positive affirmations he's always giving me. I write in this book about like how I said, the line says, me and my man don't do no fist fighting. He sprouts feathers and flies off in space, and I resort to writing. I still do that. Like, so we might have a big old argument. I'm like,
we talk about accountability a lot. There's vulnerability, but there's also accountability. You gotta answer for what comes out your mouth.
Notice on the page, I think what it also does for a lot of readers is I think it opens up the imagination. If I had this book when I was 12, 13, when my hormones like kicked in, and I'm trying to figure all this stuff out, that told me about like, oh, that's what that experience is like. I write in here about memories of our wedding day. So book also, if you are someone trying to figure out your purpose, trying to figure out what that thing is rotating in you, this is also a book for you too, because clearly at the very end, I performed this poem about being a poet afraid to publish. And here I have published a book. So I've discovered, I know my planet is to be a poet. I know it. I know this thing in here is for me to be doing exactly what I'm doing right now. So joining me in conversation this evening, one of my dear holies, known her for 2 decades, a fire poet. She about to spit. Welcome, Dr. Crystal Leigh Endsley to the...
I will offer you. So, I never wanted to write poetry. I only wanted to manage my pain. Stuff my hurt into the curves of letters, consonants that beat like fists to make us all feel better. We've been strategically positioned for failure, so there's surprise when we succeed. Be careful not to confuse humility with defeat. Don't make judgments based on what you see. Still water, still run deep. So you best to sit still if you got shaky feet. You best to keep quiet if you're not sure what to speak, but your silence won't protect you, and it will not set you free. As for me, I want a cheap thundercloud shape with Barra Harriet Tubman's garter, so I feel right at home with my Baldwin and Co. supporters. So if God be for us, that makes us unstoppable. If it looks impossible, if it sounds illogical, that keeps things exciting. We don't blink at obstacles. We don't shrink at threats. We don't rescind our statements. We don't expect you to understand if your vision ain't there yet. And yes, times do get hard. I still hit my knees, call out the Almighty God. He told me, girl, get up, get dressed, put your good shoes on, because the war is not over. You gotta love all of my people, no matter where they are, from that freestyle cipher on the corner to the rising academic superstar. Use your words to remind them who they are, like soft velvet gloves over brass knuckles, baby, we hit hard. Surprise, we go far across the spectrum of the lyrical refrain. Honey, this is what you get when you mix Cornell West with Lil Wayne. Malcolm X meets Queen Elizabeth's reign. The House of Common Senators meets the House of Pain. The Shaolin Temple and the clan of Wu-Tang. I do my thing. I am one half master, one half runaway slave. I am Pecos Bill Paul Bunyan meets Apache Indian brave. I will scalp you just to get to your brain. So if there is a flesh wound and you find yourself in pain, I'm Professor X. Or you could just call me the doctor. I am Lena Horne meets Lady Gaga. We go further, we hit harder. I am Carmen Electra mixed with Patricia Hill Collins, the highest of heaven swinging low to the earth. The boy from the mobile home trailer park met a girl buying high fashion. I was the accident that happened. In other words, I was what got birthed. Things got noisy like the Titans was clashing. Bobo Hill Dread Rasta meets heavy metal thrasher. A beautiful disaster. They work hard, we work faster. I'm your favorite video fixin' and your favorite TV preacher. I am both, yet I am neither. I'm Crystal Leigh. It's nice to meet ya. What's up, y'all? What's good?
Good evening. We're very happy to be here. I flew in from Washington, D.C. last night.
Yep.
I think I leave, go back to D.C. tomorrow. And Dr. E was also here. So maybe we could just probably share a little bit about how we got here. Does that work well?
Yeah, we've been friends for how long, Tony?
It's been 20 years. So the story goes, Dr. Endsley and I met each other back in like 2005. We were both graduate students at Penn State University. We both discovered that we were poets and spoken word artists. And we just started naturally just performing with each other, writing with each other. We would get on stage, and y'all clearly see we have a very similar thing.
Dynamic duo.
A dynamic duo. Her PhD is in curriculum and instruction and women and gender studies. My PhD is in education leadership. But y'all should know something. We're academics and poets. It's a both and. It's not a separated situation. I'm now the author of 2 books. You're the author of a book, and we could probably talk about 2 books. I just talk about those 2 today.
Yeah, that's so. And I think too, everything that we've done as poets, as performers, as teachers, as educators, I don't know, it's really evolved. That's the word that just keeps coming to my mind. So what a gift. Thank you, DJ. Thank you, everybody, for coming through tonight. Shout out to Riverdale High School in the building.
Yeah. Which is the connection, by the way. That was the day. So I was, shout out to my publisher, HarperCollins. I've been on a tour with Applehead. Yeah, I love it on tour. It's fun. And I knew I was coming to Baldwin & Co. because DJ, again, like, he gave my publisher the business. And they were like, Tony, we booked your flight. The hotel is ready. Like, you can go. I'm like, damn. And so I told Crystal about this, and she already has a relationship with folks here at the United States, honestly. And so she was like, Tone, if you are going down there, I'll come. She spent her own dime to fly down here from New Jersey just so that we can go to Riverdale High School. I'm on it.
In the house.
Yeah, and we did writing workshops with their high school students. We talked about hip hop, or poetry, and spoken word, and knowledge of self, the 5th element of hip hop. We talked about Knucklehead, signed some books, and then we just kind of wrapped her into this moment today. So I just want you to know that's how this happened. There's been this organic 20-year history through the arts, through literature, through reading, through poetry, through scholarship. And so, and I'm very inspired by Dr. Crystal. Y'all should know I thanked her in the back of this book. Now, if you go to the acknowledgement section, please feel when she's like, that's when they get Yeah. So that's how we got here. That's why we're here. And so let's talk about
So let's get into
it.
We saw, I mean, y'all just saw Tony's dope performance, right? So this is how I met him, right? Performing as a student, but also as a spoken word artist, right? And so explain to me, because this is your second book, but this is your first collection of poems.
Yes.
And so explain to me that transition for you as an author, going from writing specifically for the stage to writing specifically for the
page. What a good question. I'll connect the dot here. My very first book came out last year. How the Boogeyman Became a Poet, DJ mentioned, is a young adult. So I'm a young adult writer. I write to young adults or teens and people who also read into teen literature. I'm an adult. I only read YA. That's the truth. Like, I go right to a bookstore and I'm like in the children, the teen section, talking to kids about the book subject. I like pictures, right? And so I read them. It's a young adult memoir, all written in verse. If you're not sure what that means, each page is sort of structured like poetry. There's stanzas, there's rhyming, there's alliteration. Shout out to other YA authors in verse: Amber McBride, Candace Elo, Mahogany Brown, Gibby's old boy, Dean Adder. Y'all probably met some of them. I'm sure y'all have had them in the store. But the book tells the story of, one, how did I become the first person in my family to go to college? Shout out to First James in the building. Got here, we here. Hey, we here. That's right. Hey, what's up, man? 2, how did I start coming out the closet as gay? And 3, how I discovered poetry is like this thing, right? And I meant that in one of my first poems about, I've been speaking in these rhythmic patterns since I was in 3rd grade. In Boogeyman, I tell the story about like how I remember writing a poem once on the page for 3rd grade. And the poem was so good that the teacher put it on a bulletin board outside of class. And when you were a kid and the teacher put you on, it's a big deal. You couldn't tell me nothing. I'm like, I'm a poet, but. And then my teacher was like, yo, you really have a way with words, at least on the page, but also you seem to like an audience. You like to speak. And so they say, well, would you like to be the MC for one of our school programs? So next thing you know, I'm now the master of ceremonies of our elementary school. So I'm writing poems. I'm an MC. Like, this was sort of a natural kind of thing. Now, in Boogeyman, I talk about where the poems came from, and that is simply when I was growing up, closeted gay little boy, trying to figure my life out. My parents got divorced relatively early. My father was in the military. He had to get out because he got addicted to drugs and alcohol and all kind of things. Pops is fine. He really is sober. I love him. We're the best of friends. I never grew up with him. Grew up relatively poor, second-hand clothes. I was bullied a lot because I was always a skinny, little short, kind of frail guy. Didn't play sports, which had nothing to do with me being gay, but nobody taught me how to play sports. I was just dealing with a lot of less. And so I was bullied. Anyway, and I remember I would write poems to myself sometimes when I couldn't sleep, right? When I couldn't sleep or when I'm stuck in class or anywhere, I would just write. And the goal was not to create a poem that was a finished product. The goal was not to have something beautiful. It was something just for me. Just for me. And so in How the Boogeyman Became a Poet, y'all should know I kept some of those handwritten poems I had as a kid and I photocopied them in that book. And so that book starts in spring 1999. Yeah, ooh, I'm old. I look good. Spring 1999. I'm in my senior year of high school. And I'm telling this because it connects to in my senior year of high school, I'm about to graduate. No idea what I'm about to do. I think I got crushes on boys. I ain't never done nothing with a boy yet. And I have a girlfriend who goes to a nearby high school. And I'm secretly writing poems. She knows about the poems, but she don't know about all the poems. And by the end of the book ends in spring 2000. So it's a short time period. So I write from the perspective of my teenager self. And you learn, oh, he made it into college. Oh, that boy came out. That's where the poetry comes from. That same process that I used to write How the Boogeyman Became a Poet is exact same process I used to create the poems in Knucklehead. Right. And so this is a collection of poems that I've been writing just to myself to deal with my world. And it wasn't until, again, I remember writing Boogeyman and also sharing poetry on the stage that I learned about the vulnerability that poetry brings and the freedom that it brings. And so when it comes to like a spoken word poem on the page, or versus a poem on this, like for me, it's a matter of like, how can I best engage with the audience? Something my editor told me with this collection and with Boogeyman is like, Tony, you can perform on the page.
Yeah.
Like think about the page itself as a stage. How can you perform your words on that page? And for me, that's where verse and poetic structure kind of came from. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. So yeah, the first book is a memoir and is a very much a told story. There's a beginning, middle, and end. There's an art. This, however, is a collection of poems. So it reads a little differently. And what I wish I know about the way this poetry collection reads, it's not a traditional collection where like, oh, there's a table of contents or, hey, let me go to the love poem section or like, right. This is the kind of poetry collection that's designed for you to read from cover to cover. So all the titles in this book are essentially transition phrases. So you finish a poem and it literally automatically leads you into another one. And the last thing I'll say, this is way forward to your question, but I'm just going up right now, getting up in my bag. In this book are also beautiful illustrations. And y'all, that's probably another thing about poetry on the page.
Yeah.
Is when it's in book form, there's so many beautiful different kinds of things that can happen. And so there's a wonderful person. I've never met him. His name is Julian Aiden Alexander. He had a contract with HarperCollins. And he read the poems in this book and he created, I think there are 12 or 15 illustrations in this book specifically related to these poems. I didn't have any control over that. And so in this book, you'll see these beautiful pictures. And so for me, when I realized this poetry in the page can look like this, it can look like a memoir in verse, but poetry on the stage is what I gave y'all before. It's like, yo, I don't need this book. You know what I mean? Y'all, my audience, I'm here with y'all. There's more of a call and response relationship that I'm desiring. It is a spiritual thing. And I wanted that same reaction in a book. So for me, there is a bit of a call and response that takes place in this when you read it. And I just make it really short is when I've been reading poems from this book to students or even to adults, whoever, there's like a head bob thing that goes on like while they're reading. It's like, ooh, there's like a little soft, like, there's like a call and response. And I'm like, I love the fact that they're able to catch that. So that's the longest answer to your got you. But I feel like people need the context.
Yeah, I think that's so good. It's, you still get an embodied response, even though the words are on the page and you're not necessarily relying on your own energies.
Yeah.
You know, to bring your audience.
Yeah, because that's really tricky because I won't see everybody who reads the book. You know what I mean? Like I won't be able to understand their call. I don't know if they heard my call or
They respond.
Right.
They provide the context. Right. Like what a gift this is to give us the background. And speaking of the background, you got Juicy, the memoir, honey, and the How Boogeyman Became a Poet, and even here, even though this is a collection of poems, and less of a structured story format, what has been the response by the people who know you in real life? Because I think it's very different, your audience who's meeting you for the first time because of the book. You know what I'm saying? But what has it been like for you? Because that's talk about vulnerability.
Yeah.
What has the reaction?
Yeah, I love that. I'm really, really grateful and blessed to come from a family and a community that has always showed me a whole lot of love and acceptance, even during my coming out process, which by the way was never like a mom, dad, grandma, let's sit down, let's talk. That's just not how it happened. The one girl I had in high school, we broke up and never dated a girl ever since. So that's just kind of the way it goes. And then I found the internet, and shout out to AOL, Instant Messenger back in the day, like learn how, y'all know my AIM was popping, right? Yo, dog, yeah. Because I was growing, and I'm going to connect the dot here, because again, when I was at least growing up as a closeted kid, because the internet wasn't really around, I didn't know any openly gay people, let alone openly gay poets. Like I didn't know, and I know now that we existed. I'm like, yo, I was reading Langston Hughes, hello. You know what I mean? Like, but I didn't know then. But I remember so much about, like, I don't know where I was going with that story, but I was sort of in that moment. But there are characters in my life who do mean a lot to me. So a great example is my father, right? And how the boogeyman became a poet. I tried to be very delicate with how I talk about the folks in my life, because I want them to know that I care about them and I love them.
Right.
And I got to be mindful that when people read my books or my poems about these people, they might judge them or hurt them. A random thought in my memoir, by the way, I tell a story about being bullied on the playground, and I made up a pseudonym for this boy named Tehran. That is not his name. My family read that book and they were like, "What's Tehran live at? Where that boy at?" I was like, "Yo, this is not a real person. Like this. I mean, he's a real person, but this is not. My mom, they would have fight." And so, they love me and they want to protect me so much that I wanted to do the same thing. So with Boogeyman, I'm telling stories about what it's like growing up without my father in the picture. And in Knucklehead are poems about my dad, right? It's illustrations because I'm like, I wanted him to be represented in both spaces and treated with love. And so my family's reaction has been overwhelmingly positive. They're very excited about me. I'm kind of the only poet, writer, at least on my mom's side. Now that my dad and I have gotten closer, I've learned that there are lots of poets on this side of the family. It's worth a study, I think, to figure out like how that works out. But I've learned to treat them with a lot of care. They treat me with a lot of care. But that's part of the way I do it. I'm just authentically myself.
Yeah.
And I think they appreciate that.
It's risky business, though.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, props to all the poets who came up and read, but that's risky business, right? You're sharing yourself. And I think there's a lot to be said. I heard I think it was BB Campbell one time. She said, we tell the truth when we write, but we tell the truth with honor.
Ooh.
Because there are all things, if somebody wrote about my worst moments, I would want some grace. You know what I'm seeking? Some grace. And so that's such a tricky line to navigate, I think, because you're a hometown boy. You still live in D.C.
All day, Southeast, every day.
So you see these people.
Yeah.
They're real life.
Yeah. And also because I write to teens and to young people. And so I always try to think about what language can I use that's palatable, right? That's accessible. Because I know a lot of them are also probably, while they might not be closeted, they probably know what it's like to be outcasted. They might probably know what it's like to maybe be bullied or be judged or be talked about or be othered. They know that feeling, right? So I'm like, well, if I can write to that without getting to the nuances of, I'm not going to write about my father sniffing coke. I could do that. I'm going to write about the positive affirmations he's always giving me. Right. So in Knucklehead, there's several poems in here that are positive affirmations from my dad. I won't read them right now, but there's a photograph I want to show you. This is so dope because this is what the illustrator did. He read some of the poems I wrote about my dad and created this beautiful illustration of like this black man, little black boy baby. Because and one of the titles of the poems is "If you fail to plan, then plan to fail." My father still tells me stuff like that. My father still to this day tells me, "Son, eyes have not seen, nor ears have heard, nor has it entered the heart of man the things God has in store for you." I'm not even really like a religious person. I do say different. I'm a Christian. I know the Bible, and anyway, but I know that scripture so much because he'd been telling me that since I was a child. And to hear positive affirmations from that man who was relatively absent, I was like, I gotta make sure I do this with a lot of grace, a lot of love, and take care of this person,
Yeah. I love that you showed another image because that was another question that I had for you. These illustrations are so fire. They're gorgeous, right? And I wonder how that felt because he just read the poems and that was his interpretation. So he was like your first outside audience member, like not an editor, nobody like that, but he had to visually translate what you translated on the page. How did that feel?
Oh my gosh. First time I saw the illustrations, I might have teared up a little bit because I was stuff like, yo, this person, he got it. He got it. One of my favorite illustrations is this one. There's a group of just like little black little knucklehead boys, which by the way, anybody ever been called a knucklehead or call people knucklehead? Okay, I just want to make clear because I'm like, I titled this book like this on purpose. I'm like, there's a particular community of people who know what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about knuckleheads, it means that you might be a little disruptive. You might have a little, but you're lovable, right? My mama called me knucklehead not because she didn't like me. She loved me, but I was probably getting on her nerves. You know what I mean? And so, like, for me, ain't up a kid. Oh, please, I was a mess. Teachers would call me like little knuckleheads, but the difference was it was like this language was coming from lovable people, right? People who knew loved it, but they were like, yeah, this little knucklehead little boy. I forgot what I was going to say, but I was saying something about something.
I love that, the image.
That illustration of love, because those particular poems that sort of follow that picture, I write a lot about love. And in this book, y'all should know, I've been married to my fine-ass husband for, we're in this little area, little hemorrhage. We've been together for 10 years, but married for 7.
Already,
and so,
decade.
yeah, and so within this book are poems that I've been reflecting on about what it's like just being a black gay man in love. Also, what it's like to be a black gay man in love and you and your husband beefing, especially in a world that teaches men that you're always right? Especially black, you are always right. And then you got the chest puffing and I would be clear, I write in this book about like how I said the line says, me and my man don't do no fist fighting. He sprouts feathers and flies off in space and I resort to writing. I still do that. Like, so we might have a big old argument. I'm like, frat ball. So even that's a level of vulnerability too, because within this book are literally like love poems that I've written through my man. Right? And he knows his poems. He hadn't fully read the book, but that's also someone I also thought about was like, I had to be careful about how I do this. Because
we talk about accountability a lot. There's vulnerability, but there's also accountability. So how do you got to answer for what comes out your mouth.
Yes.
And when it's on a page, it's permanent.
And when it's on a page, I think what it also does for a lot of readers is I think it opens up the imagination, right? So for me, I'm like, if I had this book when I was 12, 13, when my hormones like kicked in and I'm trying to figure all this stuff out, if I would have had a book, either like Boogeyman or group poems that told me about like, oh, that's what that experience is like. I write in here about memories of our wedding day. I'm like, oh, that's what it's like. Just to open up the imagination. Shout out, it was possible. Shout out to Robert Jones Jr., who wrote a beautiful book called The Prophets many, many years ago. The short story is, if you don't know already, it's so good. It's fiction, but it chronicles the lives of 2 gay enslaved men. And I think to myself, like, gosh, the imagination, because I'm like, of course, slave men were gay, and of course. And I can only imagine the conditions in which they were trying to figure out how to love each other. I read that book and was like, wow, like, boom, possibility open. So for me, I think about this the same way. 30 years from now, when some little kid or whoever is like, I wonder, during the Trump administration era, when all the mess going on in the world is on fire, the dumpster, how in the world can how did the black gay man find peace and joy and love? Here's how, right? Yeah.
So let me ask you this, because it's most of the transition forms throughout are letters. Yeah. They're formatted as like Dear Knucklehead.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I forgot how many poems are actually in this book, but there are 5 letters that sort of break the book apart. And what had happened was I was facilitating a couple of I was facilitating workshops a couple of years ago with a group of black high school boys in DC public schools over the summer. We were talking about hip hop and masculinity and poetry and stuff like that. And I told them, I was like, I got this book coming out next year called How the Boogeyman Became a Poet. And then a year after that, I got another book coming out called Knucklehead. And I go to the whiteboard and I write the title Knucklehead on the board, but I misspell it. Oh, PhD can't spell for sure. And I left the E out. And so y'all notice on the cover, there's like a blue E with a little orange carrot. What happened was I went over to that whiteboard and tried to correct the error, but I made the bad mistake of using a permanent marker on a dry erase board. I know, I felt so bad for this teacher. I was like, yeah, I'm so sorry. My bad. And so when I tried to erase the thing, it got all messy anyway. And so I wound up putting like the little carrot, like, well, y'all, E should go right here. Well, what happened was those fellas was like, yo, keep it like that. And you should put that on your book cover. And in that moment, I was like, I need to write to them. I need to write to these knuckleheads, because all the poems had sort of already existed for the most part, but they're spread across 30 years. And I was like, maybe if I write letters to these knuckleheads, it'll probably weave the narrative of this collection together. And that's what wound up happening. And so there's a love letter. The very first one is a letter when I write to knuckleheads about, I love a wonderful metaphor. Y'all see the illustration. It's a picture of a dope little black boy with like a planet sort of rotated. This is the very first page. And what you all should know is I very much a philosopher, but I love to stargaze. And in our backyard, we got a telescope. And I often look up at the stars. I don't really see anything yet because I ain't really figured out how to use the telescope, but I be feeling like I'm outside doing something. But I find myself fascinated by, for example, we are definitely sitting out here at Baldwin & Co. This beautiful courtyard, slightly chilly, but we all right. But we're also on a planet rotating in space right now. Like both things are happening at the same exact time. And so for me, I'm like, there's got to be a reason for this. I got to have a purpose, a reason why we are existing. And so for me, that turned into this metaphor about having a planet in your belly. I don't know why, but I love operating in metaphors like boogeyman, like how the boogeyman became a poet. Boogeyman is a metaphor for internalized racism, internalized homophobia, and internalized belief that I will be free, right? So how the boogeyman became a poet is like, yo, how did I learn to stop being so afraid of myself? But yeah, so in this one, it's a matter of like figuring out that we have a purpose. And the first stanza, just really quickly says, yo, dear, this is the beginning of the book. Dear knucklehead, have you ever had a planet lodged in your belly that could barely fit because there is not enough free space for it to expand into a land with enough soil, seeds, water, sunlight, wind, and sand to plant and produce vegetation for people as fresh as you, as cool as you, as laid back as you are, while the world is spinning around counterclockwise, trying to birth itself into a language that breaks out of your body? But you don't need to blink, do you? And you don't hurt either, because there's more to this poem. But I wanted people to pick up this book and be like, yo, I think I got a planet in my belly. I think I got a purpose. I think that I feel called to do something. There's something rotating. Is that what that is? The anxiety I'm feeling in my tummy, right? That's your purpose calling on you. We got 5 more minutes. Oh, Tony, you're talking too much. So I'll stop.
No.
But yeah, so book also, if you are someone trying to figure out your purpose, right? Like trying to figure out what that thing is rotating in you. This is also a book for you too, because clearly at the very end, I performed this poem about being a poet afraid to publish. And here I have published a book. So I've discovered, I know my planet is to be a poet. I know it. I know this thing in here is for me to be doing exactly what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. What does that make you feel now? Has the planet gone away? No. Know what I'm saying? Yeah. Now that you've identified it, now that you've named it, and I love that you have stayed on message. It's so easy to spiral right now, and not to minimize anything like that. But how have you maintained that focus? Well, what is the name of that planet? Like,
yeah, you said the world was spiraling. I'm a poet. I've learned how to keep it spinning. Right. I've learned how to keep it spinning, meaning I consume poems. I consume love. I consume joy. My algorithm on my Instagram, if you go to it, you see them with like black family smiling, right? Joy. Like I'm someone who I tell people I live in a bit of a cave, and I'm okay with that. I read the headlines. I know what's going on, but in order for me to produce, I've got to consume, right? Joy and love. And so that's how I keep that thing spinning around. It's like, Tony, just make sure you keep consuming things that feed your purpose, things that feed the plant you're trying to grow. That's what I do.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you.
Y'all want to hear him finish the rest of that poem at the beginning to close us out?
Oh, right.
And I want to open up the Q&A before we close out. Oh, that part. Let me open up the Q&A before we close out. So are there anyone with any questions? We definitely was like, oh, did John say nothing? Sorry. Does anyone have any questions?
Happy to answer anything. Anything you want to know.
Don't be shy.
Well, now that she done offered up, read the product.
Okay, all right. Well, you mean close it out by now.
We'll close it out by doing this opening Dear Knucklehead love letter. And again, I'll be signing books later, so feel free to ask some questions then. But I got to get back into the rhythm, so y'all wouldn't mind. It's but you either blink, do you? And you don't burp either, because you know how blazing and catastrophic your breeze can be, especially when something in the wind is signaling that a storm is finna pull up and twist your atmosphere around into too many pieces. And you know that this will cause your roots to disconnect at the exact point where they are tangled together the tightest. And you know that your smoke and your haze and your hail are astronomically powerful whenever your calm collectiveness is shoved to the point of its mightiest. That's when your beautiful disaster will spread across the atmosphere, and your spirit will be unable to contain how wholesome you are, how complete pull together and upright you appear to a world afraid to recognize that the size of your body and the width, depth, girth, length, and strength of your tongue ain't things God made to threaten anyone. And so it is their fear and their eyes and their ears and their phobias and their biases and their slick slurs and their sneaky sneers that have become words that you and I are constantly translating into a poetic love speech that only we, us, know how to fluidly speak. It doesn't make any sense, knucklehead, that our celestial stature and our divine light causes onlookers, bystanders, blabbermouths, naysayers, law enforcement officers, laypersons, and lawmakers to be afraid of what we might say or what we might do once we recognize that their problems with how we came out with the world in us and how we want to show up as our full selves within it ain't got nothing to do with us, me, we, you, and it doesn't help that no one is explaining all that's going on to us in a script that we can decode, interpret, and fully comprehend, so we don't all call ourselves ambitious, inspirational, or courageous. Although, brothers, we know we're not blasphemous, ignorant, or dangerous. If anything, knucklehead, whatever force from whatever source that created the planet that can't fit inside of you is the same blast that brought about the one rotating inside of me too. So yeah, I know what it's like to bite your tongue and taste salt when letters armed as weapons are spoken to destroy you. I know that what you really want to say, your arsenal, your defense mechanism ain't as sweet or as soft or as delicate as you are for real, for real. I know you be holding back too. The next poem says, because words have power.
Thank y'all so much. Hey, you know, you get the toy. Yeah,